Thank you for calling the Venue Helpline, the podcast where venues share their biggest frustrations, toughest challenges, and behind-the-scenes headaches. If you run a venue or work at one and you've ever thought, why is this so hard? You're in the right place. Each week, you'll hear practical solutions from vetted experts who've been there, done that, and know what actually works. Because running a venue is hard enough. You shouldn't have to figure it out alone. Now, let me put you on a brief hold for the next available helper.
Hey there, it's Ian with the Venue Help Desk. Tell me, what's going on at your venue?
Hello, Venue Help Desk. I have a question about a salesperson. I was curious if you think it's best to set sales goals, booking goals per month, per quarter, and separately. Would you rather see a venue maybe not set like a ceiling of a goal, but just, you're shooting for the moon and trying to get as many as possible? I don't know if goals are a limiting factor in a salesperson's performance. And I was just curious what you guys do and what your opinion on that is. So thanks so much.
This is a great topic, especially just in time for engagement season. How your team set sales goals at your venue, whether it's monthly, quarterly, or not even at all. And it's a really great question because goal setting, I think, can either motivate a team or, as you are thinking, unintentionally limit them. And a lot of venues struggle to find that balance between having clear targets and avoiding pressure that discourages performance or discourages your team members. And there's some other areas that might get a little sticky when it comes to these conversations. First, there's a lot of venues out there that don't set any goals, which we know leads to inconsistent follow-up, and there ends up being a lack of any sort of accountability. Then there are others that just pick arbitrary, random goals. They're just thinking, oh my gosh, this month I'm going to book 15 weddings without having ever tracked lead volume or any of their conversion rates. These overly aggressive targets oftentimes can backfire, cause burnout with your team, or rush bookings, and they end up cutting deals and booking the wrong types of clients. And truthfully, without any sort of clear metrics or data, it's really hard to celebrate any wins or identify if you have a team member that's having some performance issues or their performance is slipping. So for you today, caller, thank you so much for bringing us this topic. And I'd love to share with you some takeaways that you can implement at your venue. My first tip is that I want to make sure that you're setting goals that reflect reality and that are based in reality. We really need to think about our goals and base targets on actual conversion data from previous months and previous years. These are numbers like your inquiry to tours on a monthly basis and tours to bookings on a monthly basis. You also want to make sure when you're setting goals for your business that we need to factor in seasonality. We can't expect the same number of bookings in a slow booking month compared to engagement season. My next tip for you is that I want to make sure, as it relates to your data, that you don't skip out and forget to track other data points. These aren't just measuring your bookings or the number of sales that you have each month. We really need to measure what leads to those bookings. These are the inquiries to tours, right? That conversion rate of inquiry to getting them in the door, how many tours were conducted, how many follow-ups were sent, what are your response times. There's so many other data points that are very important for us to track as a team. And so setting goals of responding to leads within 24 hours on a monthly basis, I think is a really great way to stay on top of consistency. We also want to make sure that we're tracking these effort-based goals on a weekly basis. So the example I shared with you of making sure every lead receives a personal follow-up within 24 hours. It's almost like at a factory. When you see up on the board where there's been 0 accidents this month, you can do the same thing and encourage your team to make sure they're staying consistent with those follow-ups, because that in turn is going to help you reach those goals. My next tip is to make sure that you're using monthly check-ins and really setting quarterly goals. And I think this addresses your question a little more directly. Using those monthly check-ins and reviewing your progress monthly is a really smart way to stay on top of your goals. But setting quarterly goals gives you more of that broader picture. And I'm more of the mindset and support of setting quarterly goals because we all know our salespeople may have off months, or on the opposite side of that coin, they may have a unicorn month. And so giving them a quarterly goal, I think, is a little bit more realistic. Here, you're going to break your quarterly goals into monthly milestones, really to allow your team member or team members to stay on track without this all or nothing pressure. At your monthly sales meeting, that's where you're really going to have that opportunity to gain a little bit of clarity and direction on how you're reaching goals and what you need to do next month if you're off track. What I suggest doing and what we do at my venue, Madera Estates, is that we use a monthly sales report. So each month our team sits down together and we review all of those data points that I just shared with you. We also have a war board in our sales office. So for your sales manager, this is a really great way to maintain visibility and to keep accountability for reaching those goals. Now, my fourth and final tip for you is that I think you should always have goals. I don't think there is a world that we live in with salespeople and managing people that we shouldn't give them goals, even stretch goals. So as many as possible always sounds great. And of course, every venue wants to sell as many weddings as possible. They want to book as many tours as possible, but it's really not measurable. And so I think it's always important that we need to give our team members specific goals to track progress and to be able to allow your team to celebrate their wins. So each month's goal, in my opinion, should be at or just above your historical performance for that same time period. Then you can always pace those goals. So if you realize you're halfway through the month and you're already at your goal, then you can pull out that stretch goal and incentivize your team member to sell even more. So layering in these stretch goals is a really great way to keep your high performers challenged and motivated. So goals really aren't limiting when you think about it this way, especially when they're paired with incentives. And for me, any salesperson that I have ever hired, the ones that I focused on were financially driven. So your salesperson absolutely should earn some sort of base salary plus commission for each wedding that they've booked. And like I said, if you do decide to layer in those stretch goals, you can give them additional incentives and bonuses when they hit or exceed those targets. Now, we'll be diving deeper into compensation structures for your sales team in an upcoming episode, but remember, giving your team members goals helps drive focus, and these incentives drive results. So here's our big takeaway for today. Sales goals allow your team to be motivated, but not manipulated. And the best venues out there are setting these clear, data-informed goals that evolve with their market and the season. And when used right, goals can really create focus and help your team celebrate progress, not limit what's possible. That's it for today's episode of the Venue Helpline. Thank you so much for listening. We love helping you tackle these real-life frustrations. But before you go, here's one last thing. Don't forget to submit your biggest venue frustration, because we'd love to feature it in a future episode. The link's waiting for you in the show notes. And while you're there, hey, be sure to subscribe to our email list so these episodes come straight to your inbox.